You ever watch a movie and you really love it and it's your whole thing for a while and everyone tells you to stop talking about it but you can't because you love it so much, and then some company makes a licensed game about it and you buy it and sink hours and hours into it, and yeah, it's flawed, but you just love the game and the IP so much that the flaws of the game are practically meaningless to you? Gosh, I wish that was the case. Yeah, I bought and played the Robocop game without having seen any of the movies. Cause come on, it's Robocop, I get it. It's like the Terminator, I haven't seen any of the movies, but I'd totally be down to play the games. I take it back. It's like Dragon Ball FighterZ. I first started playing it because my friends were, and even with no knowledge of the franchise, I had a great time, and it even got me to start watching Dragon Ball Super. So let's see if Robocop Rogue City is a solid game that stands on its own, or if it uses the IP as a crutch. There will be spoilers, but to be honest, this isn't a very spoilable game. The reason why I say that this game isn't very spoilable is because this is not a new entry in The Last of Us, or Red Dead, or God of War series. This is Robocop. The franchise centered on a police officer who got his arm blown off and his body riddled with bullets, got shot in the head, and then was put back together as a cyborg super cop by a giant corporation that owns the police department. And to its own benefit, this game is incredibly aware of that fact. It is not a Red Dead because it doesn't want to be Red Dead. Robocop is comfortable and thrives in its absurdity, from colors exploding out of the torch heads blown away by the Auto 9, to blasting a hole in their dongs. And that is best shown in the very opening of this game, where a group of torch heads take over the news channel and seemingly address you directly, the new guy. With this comes a serious problem though. This game is impossible to take seriously, no matter how much it wants you to at points. This is the big twist of the game, so skip ahead 10 or 20 seconds if you don't want to see it. But seeing a monitor with this geezer's face on it pop out of this giant metal robot was the hardest this game made me laugh. I do not think I could care less about the old man. So seeing he was the final boss of this game, let alone his face on that screen, wasn't even a letdown. It was just like, okay guys, if that's what you're going for, then sure. And speaking of the old man, the fact that this is a licensed game brings with it two problems. The first is that it's very interesting and disappointing that a game based on a movie has almost no sense of cinematography at all. It is so bland and basic in its cutscenes, with most of the action being in the gameplay. And that may sound like a good thing. You would want the actual gameplay to be fun and action-packed. The issue is that the game is in first person, which means that every time you actually get to see Robocop, he's never doing anything exciting. And I really don't mind the gameplay being in first person, I'll get into that later, but I feel like if you're gonna do that, you have to make the cutscenes exciting as well. The second problem is that this game's story, and frankly the entire game, is way too dependent on knowledge of the movie. I had no clue who the old man was, nor had any connection to him. So when he ended up in the hospital and died, all I was thinking was, oh, that guy? And let's talk about the new guy. He's this mysterious crime lord that the OCP is after, and the guy that Torchheads was sending a message to in the beginning. He's built up pretty well, as you go after two different underlings to find him, and when you finally meet him with his gun trained on Lewis, they finally reveal his identity. The man you've been hunting is Emil Antonowski's brother, Wendell, seeking vengeance for Emil. What was going through my head when they dropped this absolute bombshell was, oh fuck. I should have watched the movies. I had no clue for the entirety of my playthrough who he or his brother were. You know when I found out who his brother was? When I was writing the script for this video and looked it up. Throughout the entire game, this character meant nothing to me. The only things that mattered to me regarding him were his arrest scene because the music in it was really good and very triumphant, and his death because I was furious. Robocop Rogue City is very tedious and has terrible pacing. I love Star Wars Episode 1, but this plot is driven by in-universe politics that are so boring that I now understand how other people feel watching The Phantom Menace. So after hours and hours of a dragging story that hinges on Antonowski being locked away or dead, and seeing him escape prison and have to chase him again, all I wanted was to kill him. But I couldn't even have that. Not only is this character killed in a cutscene, but it's not even Robo that kills him. It's the character that's been put on the shelf for half the game. And it would be satisfying to see her kill Wendell, the person that put her on the shelf, if they built her up more and we spent more time with her. But again, it expects us to like and know her from the movies. I do like Lewis, but this moment just isn't built up enough. And I really want to nail that point home. I like Lewis. I don't hate her, I don't love her, she's okay. Because like every character in this game, she's bland. They don't develop her or almost anyone at all. The only ones they develop are Samantha, dependent on your dialogue choices, because she goes from thinking you're a government drone to saying, hey, you know what, that robot's alright. And of course they develop Pickles. But I fucking hate Pickles. The only thing I like about him or his fucking character is that Robocop says his name.
Pickles.
He does have an arc from evil homeless man to homeless man with a heart of gold, but he pisses me off because it's always something with pickles. But that's about it. I like Ulysses, but no matter how much I tried to help him, he was still the picked on rookie. I like Dr. Blanche, but she goes from liking us to liking us because we saved her. Wendell is... well, firstly, he's named Wendell, so you can't take him seriously. And he dresses like Chris Redfield. But his revenge motive and attempts to detach Robo from his human side are cool, so he's alright, I guess. And as if the pacing wasn't bad enough, the characters talk so slowly and have some of the most boring conversations I have ever heard in my life. There are some fun conversations, like these drug dealers talking about moral economic principles.
Maybe you think that building a customer base by selling your product under its manufacturing costs is a good idea.
Under what?
But it's not. Such practices are spoiling the market.
It's been proven time and time again that such action leads to a reduction of future demand, yours included. Antitrust laws are there for a reason.
But most of the time, they say as little as possible in as many words as possible. This game also has some RPG-inspired elements, but unfortunately took inspiration from the worst parts of RPGs, such as the Bethesda-quality line delivery and acting.
Citizen, I am ordering you to discontinue this deliberate act of vandalism.
Screw you, man!
They fall in this weird, shitty valley. Like, the voice acting in this game would be peak if Robocop was more robotic and the humans were less robotic. But they all fall in the shitty valley where no one is human nor robotic enough. And the dialogue options they give you do usually have an impact on the plot, but they don't at literally the most important times. This whole game hinges on the conflict between Officer Murphy's humanity and programming, and you can lean either way in the counseling sessions with Dr. Blanche, but it doesn't matter at all in the end. The Murphy you choose to be does not affect this story in the slightest. The world itself, though, is really a sight to behold. It really does showcase the Unreal 5 engine brilliantly. For the most part. There is a section that looks like a Call of Duty map, but the main city of Detroit, because of course the city this rundown would be Detroit, looks fantastic, especially the neon lights reflecting in the puddles. I really like this 80s future where technology is capable of incredible things that it can do now, but nothing is streamlined, and things like laptops are still super clunky, and people still regularly use house phones and payphones. I only have two problems with the open world, but unfortunately they're pretty big problems. There is no music when traversing the open world, and it is an absolute pain to get anywhere. Robocop walks so slow that it is utterly dejecting to see your objective is on the other side of this relatively small map. And the sound of Murphy's feet thumping against the ground is charming at first, but when you're just mindlessly roaming across this beautifully ugly yet very static city, it gets old remarkably fast, especially with just how much you walk. So much of the gameplay, especially the side missions, are based on walking. Whether it be issuing parking tickets, following wires to find and turn on a fuse box, or even solving a murder case. I know that sounds interesting, but it's not. Let me break this mission down for you. First you find a body, then you see there are tire tracks and she has a bluish green goop on her arm. Then this guy tells you to go to a movie set where they're filming a commercial for a bluish green sunblock, so you walk all the way over there, then you talk to the director who says the lead actor is up to something, so you find evidence against him. Then the lead actor says the killer is his understudy, then you find the understudy all the way over here, and you talk to him and investigate, and it turns out it actually was the actor. But the understudy was guilty of something else, so you arrest him. Then you walk all the way over to the set and arrest the lead actor, and then that's the whole mission. No action, no choices, just walking and talking. And if that's not bad enough, the side missions disappear if you go back to the station. So you have to do them immediately if you want to do them at all. And sometimes they don't even track. Look at the first thing this mayoral candidate said to me after I blatantly supported him on live television and condemned his opponent.
I want your support.
The actual gameplay, though, is really fun at first. I really like the integration of Murphy's vision into the UI, and just walking through these rooms of enemies and taking them out one by one, whether it be shooting dongs or tossing them out of windows, is super fun and badass, albeit a lot simple. And a lot of people wanted the game to be in third person so you could actually see Robocop in all the action, but I actually much prefer it in first person. And think seeing the back of his head for the entire game as you just stroll through a tornado of bullets would be a bit goofy. But once you're only like a mission into your play session and have already heard someone say, "He shot my freaking hand off," 30 times, it gets incredibly old. Even in the boss fights too, since they play the exact same way as the regular encounters, where you spam the auto 9 and try to avoid gunfire, but it's really not a big deal if you don't. Robocop Rogue City's gameplay is like cheap gum, where it tastes really good at first, and then after like 5 minutes you're already over it and it has no flavor. I already deleted the footage for Arkham City, but when I was playing that game, my first session was 4.5 hours. Look at Arkham Origins, 4.5. Suicide Squad, 4.5. Because the combat in these games is engaging. I know a lot of people don't like the Suicide Squad combat, but at least you're thinking. But by the 1 hour mark in my Robocop sessions, I was pulling my hair out, counting down how many missions I had left. And honestly, I was just wanting to play Cyberpunk. Ironically though, one thing I wouldn't be able to escape by playing Cyberpunk is all the bugs this game has. Let me be clear, this game runs. It's fine. There's nothing really game-breaking, but at the same time, there are some issues in this game that I have never seen before. Like how there's these weird black square fuck-ups literally every time the camera cuts. And I'm being 100% serious when I say that. I paid attention, and I did not catch a single time the camera cut without that weird glitch. And if it did, it was infrequent enough for me to not notice. The lip syncing in this game is so bad at times that the characters' mouths don't even move.
Officer Briggs is missing.
The gunshot audio here is way too early.
You'll make a fine trophy.
There are a few graphical issues like this blood splatter disappearing in plain sight, this square popping up on the squad car window. Whenever someone's in a hospital bed, they just stare off at nothing. I could count the polygons on this E209, and it has shit graphics. Like literally, they have shit graphics. Everything here looks hand animated, which is usually really good for 2D products, but here they really would have benefited from motion capture. There was some gameplay bugs like when I tried to throw this guy. The game glitched my Auto 9 upgrades and made it fully automatic with the bottomless clip, which was honestly really fun, but disappointing when I realized that wasn't possible on any of my circuit boards. And the frame rate just took a nosedive in this combat encounter in performance mode, and it was even worse when I looked to see what quality mode would be like in that encounter. But what really sucked about the glitches is that it caused the same problem Jedi Survivor had with the sped up ending. This guy was performing in a concert and he started talking to Robocop, but the singing was still playing when he was talking. The joke, which he later clarifies, is that he was lip syncing the whole time. But I missed out on that joke because of how shitty the game was performing up to that point. And I was only like 2 or 3 hours in. And I'm sure this wasn't in their budget, but during this OCP Afterlife presentation, the Alan Wake and Resident Evil fan in my brain immediately thought, damn, this would be a perfect opportunity for a live action section. At the end of my Jedi Survivor video, I said that the game was probably a 5.5 out of 10, but it was my love of Star Wars that anchored me in and elevated my enjoyment to the point that I gave it a 7 out of 10. And I feel like it's the same situation here, but now I'm on the other side. This was my first experience with the Robocop franchise ever, and frankly, I'm disappointed. Everyone says how great the first movie is, and I know it deserves the hype, but this game relies on that love way too much. It just can't stand on its own 2 feet, and frankly, I was just glad it was over. This game really sucks, man. I'm giving Robocop Rogue City a 4 out of 10. I cannot recommend this game if you're unfamiliar with or not a fan of the franchise. I do want to say though that I probably would recommend it if you are a fan of the movies. This game was clearly made by people who love the franchise, and there was so much care and attention put into the little details that I'm sure fans will love and appreciate more than me. I know Ralph from Skill Up is a super fan, so if you're more interested in a fan's perspective, I definitely recommend watching his review. I'll put the link in the description along with a few other fan reviews. Well, that's all the time I have for this video and possibly my life. I don't know if you can hear, but there's an angry mob of 45-year-old men outside my house because I said Robocop was a 4 out of 10. I'm not saying I'm in any danger, but if I don't upload within a month, you know what happened.